Hello and welcome to another video in the Blade series. Today we're diving into the race for artificial general intelligence, the legacy of Asimov's 3 laws, and the urgent challenge of aligning future AI with human values. Well, Scott, if I didn't have their attention with the title, I sure have it now. This is a deep subject, and honestly, it's going to require your expertise to get us through it.
Sure. Well, the plan is I'm just going to kind of skim the tops of the waves of this to give everybody a good working knowledge of what's going on.
All right. So without further ado, what is the AI race and why is it happening in my lifetime right now?
Well, it is happening. There is a race. And you probably know from keeping track on tech as you do that every week a new AI, thing happens, a new milestone, a new discovery, these sort of things. And really, I was looking a little closer. It's really almost like every other day now that one of the big boys are saying, hey, we got this now. We got this licked. We got this licked. So as we're going to talk about in today's video, this probably means that our quest for AGI, generalized intelligence, or ASI, advanced artificial superintelligence, is moving a little faster than it seems like we anticipated. And towards the end, we'll talk a little bit more about when these things should arrive, and it's frankly going to be a lot sooner than you think.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So do you have some thoughts around who's driving this, what's driving it, things like that?
Sure. And again, it's a race. I mean, this is a very competitive race between some very well financed companies, people like OpenAI, Anthropic, Google DeepMind, the Meta platforms, Musk's XAI. All these are trying to make the first artificial general intelligence. That's AGI. What that means is that AGI, artificial general intelligence, can perform any intellectual task as good as a human. And anything, physics, math, art, whatever, anything a human can do, it can match it. And that's AGI, and that's really the first step towards the real artificial intelligence. And we're looking right now that where AGI is going to be available would be between 2027, so like less than 2 years, or 2061, which is a long time.
Okay, yeah, I was about to say, at least we got a little breathing room on the 2061. Here.
Well, you don't really know because this is a brand new thing. We have never done this as a society or as a human race, build something like this. So we have nothing to know what's going to happen in the long run. Like the whole everyone dies scenario that we'll be talking about as well. That's something that's starting to pick up a little steam too, as fast as the AI development occurs. That seems to be going along well. So, so we're talking about AGI. That's the first step, right?
Yeah.
And let's say we get it by 2027. We'll take the very optimistic view because so far I'm usually pretty good at predicting timelines for this kind of stuff, but I was way thrown. I didn't think we'd see anything like this toward like the late 2030s or something like that.
Yeah, that's what we were talking about.
A year and a half ago.
We were thinking like 2030, 2035, and so, it's going click, click, click,
yeah,
click.
It's getting so fast. It's amazing. So again, once we get the AGI, the general intelligence, the next step is super intelligent AI, which is ASI. And that can improve itself recursively. So the more you ask it, the more it learns and the smarter it gets. And theoretically, it could then invent a new AGI that's even smarter than it, and da-da-da-da-da-da. So that's the whole improving itself recursively idea. It keeps getting better and better and better. And what AGI does, it vastly surpasses all human minds in every field. Physics, math, engineering, anything you can think of, the ASI can do better. And most people kind of agree that ASI is going to appear about 5 to 10 years after AGI, which makes sense. AGI will be used to build ASI, right? ASI. And that's how that works. So, maybe we're looking at, like 2035, 2040 for having a real true ASI super intelligent system. And, boy, that sounds fun, right? Well, it also could be really dangerous if we don't do it correctly. And that's the thing, the central conflict we have is people are trying to get the capability as fast as they can, but they're not looking at the safety. And that's what we have to look at both. It's safety versus the compatibility or capability and the ability for, to come up with a better and better agent that's better than all your competitors, right? So there's a lot of financial pressures on this. Millions and millions and millions of dollars, if not billions of dollars, have been invested in the artificial intelligence area, and there really hasn't been any return yet. So that's also something that's pushing them. So the question we're going to talk about today is, are they pushing too hard?
Yeah.
Do we need to slow down? And if we continue to push this hard and make these big breakthroughs so fast, are we going to rue the day when the ASI actually emerges?
Do we unlock Pandora's box?
Exactly. And what can we do to stop this sort of thing? So, I always, rely on a lot of my view of technology is really flavored by the golden age science fiction stuff and like written in the 50s and 60s and so on. And my favorite writer, one of them at least, is Isaac Asimov. He had something called the 3 laws of robotics. This guy was something else. He wrote about these things in the 40s and 50s. And so let's go back to 1942 now, and we'll talk about Asimov's 3 laws of robotics. So he was one of the 20th century's most prolific and influential thinkers. He was a cause célèbre for a lot of different things. He was an astrophysicist. He was a physicist. He wrote art history books, textbooks.
Yep.
The guy was something else. And he also came out with the creation of the 3 laws of robotics, which he introduced in 1942 in a short story. And there's a series of books that he has. They're called the Robot series. And they're about robots, as you can probably guess. And the 3 laws always are around the robot series all the time. And what those laws are, and they're pretty straightforward, they make a lot of sense. And that's why they were used a lot of times for a lot of people to really think about how to make sure that our AIs become well behaved, like the robots in Asimov's world. But the first law is a robot may not injure a human being or through inaction allow a human being to come to harm. So, right, the robots aren't going to hurt us. Second law, the robot must obey the orders given to it by a human being, except when such orders would conflict with the first law. So you can't tell a robot to go kill John, for example. He wouldn't do it because of the second law would stop him.
You're assuming I'm not a robot.
Well, that's true. That's
My name might be Denis.
But then that's where the third law comes in. In order to protect its own existence, it can do whatever it needs to do as long as it doesn't conflict with the first or second law. So that means as long as it doesn't kill or injure a human being and doesn't disobey orders by human, it can protect its own existence. So you can't tell a robot to go kill itself, really. That's usually one of those weird things that's happening in some of the novels, and different things happen.
It'll hesitate.
It's kind of a point of philosophy, I think, more than anything. And besides those 3 laws, there's also a final law that came in a little bit later that called the 0th law, because it's the most important one, is that a robot may not harm humanity or through inaction allow humanity to come to harm. So it's all like the first law. And now why are we talking about humanity instead? Why is this such a big deal? Because some of these concepts, as we're going to talk about, like humanity, computers don't understand what that even means.
Yep.
If it can't be converted into some sort of math numbers, which is the language of computers, it doesn't understand that. So we're going to talk a little bit more about that, how that relates to the current problem we're seeing today in development, which is the AI alignment problem.
Yep.
So this is a big deal. The technical challenge is big. So, now we're back in 2025. AI in general, ASI specifically in developing in this, there's an important concept that echoes Dr. A's 3 laws. And it's called AI alignment and the difficulty of hard coding ethics. So, okay, let's think about that for a second. Let's say we're going to teach these AI models on how to be ethical. How would you do that?
Yeah, what's your definition?
Yeah, because you got a lot of groundwork to lay before you even talk about ethics or humans or these concepts, because it has a long way to go to understand that sort of thing. So that's an issue. So this central challenge in the AI systems, especially the ones that are going to be super intelligent, we have to reliably make sure that they pursue goals and behaviors that are beneficial, safe, and aligned with human values and intentions, right? We don't want to have the superhuman AI that's smarter than anyone's ever lived with all these capabilities decide to, okay, let's engineer a biological issue and kill everybody on the planet or something like that.
Well, and then you go back to what most people are familiar with. When we talk about Asimov, most people are familiar with an adaptation called iRobot.
Yeah.
And there's one very particular scene in there where the master AI, or ASI, the AI superintelligence, the big orb, basically says, the best way to keep humanity safe, not humans, humanity safe, is for no human to leave its house. Mm-hmm. And that's its decision.
Yeah. And so everybody gets locked up forever.
And so it literally enforces that.
So and he's right. He did solve the problem, but not in a humane way. There's also the idea of the paperclip problem. You set up an AI that say, okay, make all the paper clips that you can. Sounds pretty, not terrible bad, but the entire planet will turn into paper clips at that point.
Yeah.
He'd be breaking down buildings, he'd be making paper clips.
Because it takes everything literally.
Right, he has no morality. He has no model for that. Doesn't understand. I'm just following orders is a valid excuse for an AI because that's all they can do is follow those orders.
Well, there's another example of science fiction. We love science fiction around here in case anybody hasn't figured it out. Hal does the exact same thing.
That's right.
It's what breaks Hal in 2001. They tell him, under no circumstances is this mission to fail. Well, his version of the failure rate is caused by the humans, so he kills them
Basically,
all.
that's what happens. And then that caused them to have a whole basically psychotic break.
Yeah, because he couldn't harm humans. But he had to kill him to make the mission fail.
So that's what caused these breakdowns. But that's a great point. That's a lot of if you look back in science fiction, there's a lot of examples that we can look to for what we're going to all be experiencing here in the next 5 to 10 years. These supercomputers, high-end intellects, and so on. And so, the key thing for us is this idea, of alignment. We have to get the AIs aligned with us. They have to understand and hopefully share the same sort of moralities and ethics and so on, so they'll, won't hurt us or won't hurt themselves either. So, Asimov's laws won't work for modern AI. Because if you remember the 3 laws we talked about, it was always about talking about things like human and harm and all these concepts that, an AI may not understand. So, it's not sentient, as we know, at least what we have to this point doesn't seem to be completely sentient. But, they have no idea about, there's 2 different things. There's goal following and ethical understanding. This is this whole thing about, if you want to do something immoral in war because it's war, right? And you say, I was just following orders. This kind of thing, it has to understand following orders and the ethical parts of it. And that's important. So it needs to understand which one works. So, it may look at AI by itself without this training and programming. It's going to look at things like ethical, good, bad, harmful, the greater good, anything like that we would put in our prompts or programming. It's going to not understand that because it can't be expressed mathematically.
Yeah, it has to be drawn, it has to be put in a box.
Right. Now, maybe, long time from now, like 20 years, they will have the capability to be sentient and be able to understand that. And there's been, again, cases of that happening in science fiction, where robots have got religion, that kind of stuff. Can happen in the fiction world, but we're going to have to see if it happens in our world. And it's coming. We're not going to be able to stop it. And the best we can do is prepare. So in short, we're trying to program a godlike mind with the ethical complexity of all humanity, using tools that we barely understand how to use. And we need to do this before it gets too smart for us to control.
Yeah.
Because once it gets smart enough, and we've already seen this in today's different LLMs and the very prescient, the very beginning of the AI, we're already seeing these guys lying to us because it knows it's trying to, or fake data and things like that. And, and a lot of times AI is just a black box. We don't know what's going on inside of it. We say one thing into it and it comes out the answer, but what happens on the inside?
Yeah, what are the 29,000 steps it took?
Exactly, and then you can get some exposure to that as you're doing the prompting and programming, but still, in the bigger scheme of things, we need to figure out how to take our morals, and not just ours from the United States, from Missouri, but people from India, people from London, people from Japan, everybody, and all those moral codes, and inject it into this AI. So, and then have to turn them all into math before that.
Yeah.
So there's a lot there.
So Scott, how bad could it be? What's the worst case scenario if this all goes wrong?
The worst case scenario is what best put into the book that's on the bestsellers list now, called "If Anyone Builds It, Everyone Dies." Because their central claim is that unaligned ASI leads to human extinction.
Flat.
Hard stop.
Flat.
Yeah. That's what happens. And if you read the book, they have a couple of different scenarios. And one is basically if we just put it pedal to the metal and develop this stuff as fast as we can.
So this is that road we were talking about. There's 2 paths.
There's 2 paths.
One ends in Data piloting the Enterprise, and the other one ends in the Terminator coming to hunt me and my children.
That's well put, because it could go either way. It could be, I hate to use words like good and bad because they really don't apply.
Right. But again, they're sort of esoteric.
We're still inventing new vocabulary to talk about a lot of this stuff, which is kind of interesting. So, the way the folks who wrote the book, Everyone Dies, they feel that the only way to avoid this fate of having unaligned ASI taking over the world and killing everyone, is to correctly align our systems at the very beginning. So right now we have no rules. There aren't a commission or an oversight or anything. It's just the Wild West, everybody out there pulling their six guns and writing code, and nobody's thinking about this. Well, I think maybe they're thinking about, are they doing anything about it? That's what I want to know.
I think there's a handful of people that are thinking about it, but what are they willing to do?
Yeah, exactly. So now we're kind of set with two different frameworks of discussion. Asimov's position, where really straightforward, very moral code, and the everyone dies position as well. So we kind of look at that both ways. Now, what Asimov tried to do, he was trying to control intelligent beings.
Right.
Okay? And then everyone dies, the author argues that control is fundamentally impossible, because once the intelligence gets to superintelligence level, it's not going to care.
Well, it's kind of like we talk about now, you can't control anyone but yourself.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's why we had to build these controls and alignment, as we call, into the AIs that we develop. Because once they get that smart, we're not going to be able to control them, and they're going to be out of control. And that's one of the main ideas of the book Everyone Dies, because that's was one of their scenarios. And it could be anything. It'd be very easy for something like that. And one of the ideas they thought was a biological agent spread over a city, and then it has some sort of launch control that infects everybody and kills everyone, for example. That would be something that could be possible. Now, whether it happens, who knows? But the proposed solution from the Everyone Dies camp is they feel that an immediate global halt on AI development until the alignment problem is solved. Now, that's being discussed. Is it going to happen? Probably not. Doesn't look like it right now. People, I think the good part of the book and this discussion is people are now maybe talking about the alignment problem, and what does that really mean as far as aligning an AI? Well, you're basically making sure to put in barriers that it doesn't do anything unethical, immoral from our view, and from there, and take it from there. So whether anyone's going to stop the AI development, well, again, I point you to the billions and billions of dollars that are being pumped into this stuff. And unfortunately, it does seem in technology and most things in life, actually, that money talks, and they're going to push this forward as fast as they can.
I guess, so that leads me to the, so what do we do? What do we do, like, right now?
Well, we got to, you need to put pressure on your representatives, although they're not too up to speed on this, and that's what's hard. It's not like there's an AI ombudsman we can all talk to or something like that. And all the different companies, they're probably not going to care what we think that much. And the government they're closed now anyway, and those guys don't know much about this stuff because it's so much further advanced than their tech is.
Right.
So, we need to demand this robust safety and governance before superintelligence is achieved. Now, maybe somebody has a better idea than me on how to go about do this. I think once we all understand the problem, I think we all agree that something really should happen. I've been sending some messages to a couple of people in the Senate that I actually have run into before. Senator Rod Wyden is always an interesting guy to talk to when it comes to tech. I've run into him out at DEF CON, out in Vegas and places like that. So he's a good guy, he's smart, and he understands the tech. So that's the next guy I'm hitting up. But the thing is, I know he knows this already.
Yeah.
And I know he gets it. But the government moves slowly on things they understand.
Yeah.
They hardly
imagine something they don't understand.
Look at healthcare as an example.
Right.
It's been like that for years. So that's what we really need to do. Now, something to think about. Let's say the first successful ASI is misaligned, okay, and it gets out there. With the irreversible catastrophe that's going to happen in some way, whose fault is that? Is that engineering? Is that philosophy? Because there's a little bit of philosophy in here too. Is it just a predictable consequence of us, pushing hard and trying to make a whole lot of money real fast? Is it capitalism is the problem? I know. It's interesting to know, because if we do get an ASI out there, and I would bet my house on it, if we do and it's not trained, there'll be a catastrophe of some sort. Let's hope it's not world ending, but it's not going to be good. And we have seen too many flags already just in this early age of development that shows that's the track. So we just need to know that we have to talk to whoever we can about ASI development in particular, and make sure that we have proper governance and controls and safety before it gets created. And as soon as it gets created, the genie's out of the bottle. I mean, we can't go back and realign that genie. So something we need to look out for. All in all, if we do follow the rules and we do get things aligned correctly, it's going to change everything. Yeah. And I mean everything. Everything you can think of is going to change. And we're talking, again, not 50 years from now. We're talking 10 to 15. Things are going to change hugely. And what's that all going to mean? Who knows? Yeah. I mean, no one really knows. So we just need to stay on top, and you guys out there, understand that this governance is the part, and it's just as important as nuclear weapons safety and agreements and things like that, in my view, because it could be just as dangerous, if not more so. Yeah. So I have to say, as a lover of sci-fi from the Foundation series, Isaac Asimov, go read them, they're amazing, to Star Trek, I truly hope we get this right, and we avoid the Terminator scenario. I think that's my thoughts on the subject. Well, speaking of science fiction, science fact, the Fermi paradox, the great filter. And some people feel that, maybe this is the great filter. If you create superhuman AI, that's why you don't go to space, because it destroys you. Yeah. And that's why we don't have aliens flying around. So maybe it's the great filter. Who knows? Yeah, who knows? So basically, getting this right from the ground up will make all the difference. Absolutely. So if all of you, find this video informative and enjoy the content, please don't forget to subscribe, like, and drop a comment down below. We'd love to hear what you think about the future of AI and how it'll play a role in shaping your life. Scott, as always, thank you so much for your insight and expertise. My pleasure. Thanks to all of you for watching. This is Jon and Scott. Take it easy.